That's not your servant. Two guards suddenly appeared in the doorway. You're coming with us, they said, gripping Ellie's wrists. She struggled against their hold, but it was no use. Ellie had not been expecting such harsh treatment when she decided to interrupt Prince James and the royal mistress Nerissa's consummation night. In an attempt to stop the two from making love and thus lowering Ellie's standing in the kingdom, she'd brought a bloody flag from one of the prince's battles into his bedroom. Just as she had hoped, he had been hit with memories from the war that were too painful for him to continue his romantic plans with Nerissa, but now, with his evening ruined, he was taking it all out on Ellie. "Where are you taking me?" Ellie screamed. Prince James's face was dark. "You'll find out soon enough." He looked up at Sir Lawrence, and his eyes hardened. "Punish her until she apologizes." Sir Lawrence hesitated. He didn't like going against his prince, but he reminded himself that one of his jobs was to look out for the prince's best interests, and this was definitely not in his best interest. "Your Highness, I know you will do what is right, but I just want to remind you that she is the princess. She belongs to this house and comes from nobility. If you punish her, it might not sit well with some people." James sneered. "I don't care. Go now. I'll be there as soon as I can. Start with 20 lashes. The guards pulled Ellie from the room. Just as they reached the doorway, she managed to swivel around and look at James. "You'll pay for this," she said, spitting on the floor at his feet. Before James could respond, the guards yanked her into the hallway. James was silent as he put on his boots. Fury rose in his chest. Sensing his anger, Nerissa wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close from behind. "Don't go, my prince," she cried. He knew that she had also not anticipated this turn of events. They both hoped they could consummate their relationship tonight, thereby legitimizing Nerissa in the eyes of the house. Still, he couldn't let Ellie's behavior go unpunished. James continued lacing his boots. "I must." "Let them take care of it themselves." "No, I must supervise this personally." "Why dirty your hands any further? Are you not happy to be here with me?" Nerissa faked a sniff and a tear. She knew that the one thing that always got the prince to do what she wanted were her tears, and she was right. James turned as soon as he heard this. "Don't cry, my pretty. I'll be back soon." Nerissa put on a fake pout. "It seems like you don't want me anymore. I'm just not as beautiful as you said I was. You would rather watch her than be here with me." James softened. The last thing he wanted to do was upset Nerissa. He fell right into her trap. "I'll stay here with you, my love, okay? Please stop crying." Nerissa's tears suddenly stopped. They were never real, but she was too good at this game. "You think I'm worth staying here?" "You're worth more to me than my whole castle." Nerissa put a finger on his chest and traced a heart on his heart. "Show me?" she said coyly. James grinned, picked her up, and carried her back to bed. He leaned down to kiss her, but something made him stop short. Nerissa turned her head, eyeing him with worry. "Your Highness?" James froze. Right at that moment, instead of Nerissa, he saw Ellie's face. He backed off of her completely. "You!" Nerissa was confused. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" But James didn't see Nerissa there. He saw Ellie. Ellie with her new beautiful face staring back at him. "Why are you here?" James was hallucinating like before. He was having an intense reaction due to his hatred for Ellie and the triggering flag. Nerissa watched him, full of concern. "Me? I'm Nerissa, Your Highness," she pleaded, but it was as though he was in a trance. "No, you're not. You're an evil witch who has cast a spell on me." His eyes were wide and wild. Prince James pointed at her as he fell back. Nerissa swooped down and leaned close to him. "My prince, are you ill? I am Nerissa, your royal mistress. Look at me." The prince noticed her red lips, blood red, and images flashed through his mind. Dead villagers and soldiers from the land he brutally invaded. James scooted back till his back hit the wall. "Don't come near me!" He jumped up and rushed out of the room in a panic. Nerissa was left all alone in the room. She noticed the flag left behind by Ellie and picked it up. There was blood on it. She realized that this was Ellie's plan all along, to elicit a strong, panicked reaction from the prince. She cursed under her breath. "Damn it! I could have had him! That vile princess is always between me and the prince." Ellie had gotten in the way of what she wanted again. She had to make a new plan. It was time for Nerissa to take down Ellie once and for all. Meanwhile, on the other side of the castle, the yard was still wet from recent rains. Ellie's dress splattered with mud as she was dragged to a log. "Let me go! I'm the princess! I will have all of your heads!" Ellie screamed and shouted, but to no avail. The guards were far more scared of the prince than they were of what a powerless princess could do. They threw her against the log and tied her hands to a metal clasp. Ellie was now frightened. She had read and learned about this time period. One of the things that always stayed with her during her reading was how they tortured people and how barbaric their methods were. Her blood ran cold as she panicked. "What are you going to do to me?" The guards leered and wagged their tongues at her. A pair of black boots landed in front of her. She looked up to find Sir Lawrence. "Sir Lawrence, you are a man of integrity. Please, you must reason with him." Sir Lawrence shook his head slightly. "I'm sorry, Princess. You frightened the royal mistress. This is the prince's order. I am only his subordinate." Ellie gulped. "What are you going to do?" Sir Lawrence took off his gloves one by one. "The prince wants you to apologize." He put a hand out and one of the guards brought him a long whip. Ellie had never seen a whip before except in history books and movies. She knew how badly they left scars. This was beyond cruel, but she needed to survive this. She wasn't going to let them break her. She would never apologize to the prince. She closed her eyes and readied herself for the blow. She knew she could get through this. Sir Lawrence gave her a pitying look. "Forgive me, Your Highness." He swiped the whip up and then brought it down on Ellie's back with a cracking sound. "Apologize to His Highness." The pain was instant and her back burned from the crack of the whip, but she was still standing strong. She had to show them that she was fearless. "What do you have to say now?" Sir Lawrence asked. Ellie looked up at him, sweat dripping down her face. Despite the pain, she forced her voice to be polite and confident. "If you wouldn't mind getting me a piece of leather to bite down on, I believe even the most evil of prisoners are afforded that." Sir Lawrence paused and then nodded to one of the guards. She was right. The guard rushed and brought a piece of leather. Before he placed it into her mouth, he asked her again, "This could be over right now if you simply apologize." Ellie said nothing. Sir Lawrence sighed and placed the leather strip into her mouth, then readied his whip again. It was at this moment that Ellie looked up and saw a tiny white bird singing on a bare tree. It was watching Ellie closely with beady black eyes. Ellie realized she had a friend in this bird, some source of comfort. The bird flew over and landed right in front of her as if he was listening to her. She narrowed her eyes with a renewed determination. When this was all over, she was going to get revenge and become queen. These sentences became a mantra for her to get through this ordeal. She would survive because she needed to. She was going to get revenge, and she was going to become queen. And she knew that getting through this torture unfazed would make the prince feel all the more humiliated. She bit down on the leather, keeping her eyes focused on the bird to keep herself steady. When Sir Lawrence was done with the last lash, he knelt next to her. "I'm really sorry, Princess. I wish I didn't have to do this." A pair of ornate black boots landed in front of her. A cold voice carried down to her ears. Finished? Yes, Your Highness. 20 lashes, exactly, came the reply from Sir Lawrence. The boot pushed Ellie's face to the side, and Ellie found herself looking up at the prince. Is she dead? Before Sir Lawrence could answer, Ellie spat out the piece of leather in her mouth and smiled. Not yet. She was never going to give him the satisfaction of breaking her. He leaned down and grabbed her by the mouth. Have you learned your lesson? Do you apologize? But Ellie only smiled up at him. I will never apologize.